What's up, everybody? It's Eric McLeod here with LowBlowRadio podcast. Going to give you another quick blow-by-blow solo episode here. Let you know what's going on in AEW right now while I cover the Women's Tag Team Tournament Deadly Draw Night 2, as well as AEW Dark tomorrow night. So let's just hop right into things. It's August 10th, 2020. The first matchup we had here, the teams drawing from the Chip Barrel. We had Big and Little Swole ending up together. Hey, imagine that. Taking on Rochelle Chanel and Leva Bates. So this kind of story of this matchup was certainly the team that knew each other going up against the sort of strange bedfellows or odd friendship team up that you get with Rochelle Chanel and Leva Bates, just awkwardly trying to work their tags, get some fluidity in this matchup, whereas Big and Little Swole definitely had that kind of stuff down, hitting great tandem tag moves, certainly showing that they had worked together in the past and that there's certainly a history between the two of them there. Fun to see in this, and cool to see Big Swole in this tournament. I was unsure if she was going to be a part of it. I thought maybe if they were going to keep her separate to the stuff going on with just Britt Baker right now, but not that can't also be involved in this. I think getting all the women involved in this tournament is absolutely a good thing. So as soon as you kind of saw her coming out, the writing was a little on the wall. You knew she was more than likely going to progress. They'd already sort of given us the big twist last week when Nyla Rose was eliminated by Anna Jay and her tag partner, Ty Conte. So they're not typical to sort of replay this and rehash the same things here. So you sort of assumed Big and Little Swole were going to get the big win here, and they certainly did, hitting a big sort of tandem blockbuster knee backbreaker type move. It was really, really cool to see in there, and fun to see Big Swole in this tournament. Next, we had drawing from the barrel Eva Leask, and she happened to get, Diamante, who we predicted was going to be her partner when this tournament was announced, taking on Rachel Ellering, who was debuting here in AEW, with her tag partner, Dasha, the commentator. I had no idea Dasha had a wrestling background. They certainly talked about her appearing on Rock's kind of athletics show that had happened in the past. She certainly has a great athletics background. She looks in great shape and that kind of stuff. So I was curious to see how she was going to do in the ring here. And then, her tag partner, I was also curious to see. I'm not familiar with Rachel Ellering, but I mean, as wrestling fans, we're all pretty familiar with that last name, of course. If you aren't, her father, I assume, Paul Ellering, a famous sort of tag manager from back in the day with LOD as well as other tag teams. So I thought she had a really fun kind of showing in here. They really talked about how she had made a name for herself in Japan. This was her first match back after injury. I apologize, I meant to look it up. What the injury specifically was, they said it was career-threatening, so I can only assume neck, something like that, concussion maybe, that had kept her out of the ring for over a year. So I thought she did a pretty good job here, kind of shaking the ring rust off and working with Eva Leask and Diamante, who had a little bit more fluidity together. They'd said before they came out they'd never teamed together, and I mean, you saw a little bit of that, of course, once you kind of knew that, but being so similar in characters, they're starting to find the subtle differences as well. So I think they're going to be a fun standout in this tag team tournament, and curious to see where they end up going later on. They were certainly the more crafty, put together team here as well, with Dasha not having much experience in the ring, as well as Rachel making her debut here. The other two women were far more experienced. They certainly picked out Dasha as the sort of weak of the two women early on, so we're able to lay most of the offense into her, hitting a really, really good Lotus lock on her, which was fantastic from Eva Leask. And they just really focused a lot of their attacks on her. Once Ellering kind of got the big hot tag, she hit a couple of fun kind of moves on Diamante and Eva Leask, especially as a kind of corner spinning leg drop that was very interesting to see, which was caused Ivelisse to then try to get to the corner, get the hot tag for Diamante to sort of wreck house to get the advantage back for their team. She hit a sort of Casadora into a stunner, which was a cool combination. Really put, I believe that was Dasha, pretty much out of it at that point. And then to end things, Ivelisse hitting a really, really beautiful code red to get the 1, 2, 3. If you were listening to the commentary, of course, Tony Schiavone kind of botched this by calling it a Canadian Destroyer. I get where these two moves look very, very similar, but I mean, she's wearing red. She does the code red. I mean, it should be pretty obvious here. I wouldn't be surprised if something a little slip up like this ends up on Botchamania, but we'll have to wait and see if Matthew catches this one. So we've got the semifinals set up here. Ivelisse and Diamante taking on Taya Conte and Anna Jay, who won last week in a big surprise win over Nyla Rose and her partner, and then Big Swole and Little Swole taking on the Nightmare Sisters, which is Allie and Cody Rhodes, or sorry, not Cody, but Brandy Rhodes. So some fun kind of matchups here for the semifinals. I don't know if they specifically said at the end if the semifinals will also be on YouTube. I kind of assume they would be. This seems to be where they're focusing this, and I mean, sure, I would rather it be on TV if it was going to be as well structured as it kind of is. But if they're just slowly building and expanding their YouTube audience to sort of test things before they do things on TV, I'm never really opposed to that. I'm a big fan of Dark. That's why I try to do the reviews here, and I'm a big fan of this, and letting it sort of get its feet wet here on YouTube before they sort of start elevating these women to the main stage, because you certainly see who's ready for it and maybe who needs a little bit more time. So we'll just have to wait and see. Well, that's it for the women's tag team tournament Deadly Draw Night 2. I'll be back for a review of AEW Dark tomorrow night. But if you're watching this or listening to it, it's going to happen in 3, 2, 1. All right, everybody, I am back here. It is now August 11th, 2020, and I'm ready to jump right into AEW Dark episode 46. Our first matchup was Lee Johnson taking on Ray Phoenix. Fun to see Ray Phoenix competing in a singles match here, and always fun to see Lee Johnson. He was a great enhancement guy when we first sort of had this shift here on Dark. Haven't seen him in a while because he's been featured more on Dynamite lately, so very cool to have him back here on Dark. They did kind of reference the fact that, he's been working with MJF on the campaign trail for him, so I'm sure we'll be seeing more of him on Dynamite in the weeks to come leading up to All Out. This was definitely a fast-paced matchup between these two. Phoenix definitely laying in the more aggressive offense between the two. But, man, he's got such a creative kicking style. He definitely was showcasing a lot of that here. Lee was definitely being able to keep up the pace with him as best he could. But Phoenix certainly was getting the better of the situation here, which is most of the time here in these enhancement matches. But fun to see what Phoenix was able to pull off. Hit a really big twisting powerbomb muscle buster from the corner to get the big finish in a quick little 6.5 minute opening matchup. Next, we had a little video from Scorpio Sky, kind of getting everyone ready for the big matchup that he's going to have tomorrow night on TNT, taking on Cody Rhodes for the TNT Championship. So, Scorpio's, as we've been following here on Dark, had a lot of really fun, great matches and building his record, building a big win streak that has, solidified him this title shot. And I think that's a fun, cool, different way for someone to sort of be getting that opportunity here, sort of rising from Dark to move themselves up to the main show there. So really, really looking forward to that matchup. I'm not even sure who to pick, really. I think a big title change like that would be really exciting for the show if they had that. But maybe it's not the time for Scorpio quite yet, but really excited to see that matchup. Anyways, next up, we had Shawn Spears taking on Alex Chandler. Now, I wasn't terribly familiar with Chandler off the top of my head. I think we've definitely seen him in backstage segments and stuff like that, but an interesting sort of matchup between him and Spears here. Spears again is just sort of trying to rework this new glove gimmick and that kind of thing, doing his best to get that over. Yeah, they worked pretty strong with each other at first. Spears definitely had to try to get the advantage by taking him to the outside. And then, as always, the refs are starting to get a little bit more suspicious of the glove every time he kind of lays in a good, heavy, solid punch. They're pretty skeptical as to whether anything has been hidden inside. I think one of the other big standouts here was we got his typical finish, someone we've seen in AEW, especially here on Dark, if not all over the place, that Death Valley driver he's so well known for. And I don't know what Shivani has with thinking he can just call everything a Canadian destroyer. Maybe they are doing too many of them here in AEW, but he popped it again here. He hit that Death Valley driver, and he called it a Canadian destroyer, quickly corrected by Taz, and they got that right in the end. Yeah, I would not be surprised if we certainly got this on Botchamania for sure. We'll have to keep an eye out for that. He did load up the glove and lay it into Alex at the end of this match, sort of become the new motif from Sean Spears here. Yeah, I'm still pretty curious to see what the end result of this kind of glove thing with him and Tully is, especially since Tully seems to be drifting more and more towards FTR and less working with Sean other than in these sort of appearances here. So curious to see what the end result of this is going to end up being. So the next match we had M. Babu, who was debuting, teaming up with Sean Dean to go against the Gunn Club, which are always fun to see. Great to see them in the ring this time, not just on the sidelines where we are used to seeing, especially and hearing Austin Gunn. So I think they're a really fun tag team. So I think the more and more matches we can get out of the two of them, especially Billy, he's a very familiar face and can draw a lot of eyes to the products and to his son for sure. So hot start with Austin going against Sean Dean. This kid's definitely got the charisma, through the roof, selling like really well for Sean, as well as really working his offense. And Billy got in to kind of help this, and Babu got kind of get over a little bit more. And he definitely did. He was sold the blocked shoulder tackle really well, and was getting some pretty hot offense in on Billy Gunn. They were able to kind of team up on Billy, work him over a fair bit to eventually sort of draw out the hot tag from Austin Gunn. He got in with a flurry, really started laying into these two guys, and hit that really kind of cool neckbreaker suplex finisher thing that he's got, which was fun to see from Austin Gunn, getting them the win in about 6:40 here on Dark. Yeah, great win for the Gunn Club. I'm excited to see them elevating again and doing more in the tag division here. I can't wait to see them against some of the more, upper echelon to top ranked tag teams, just to kind of see what happens. Next up, we had Michael Stevens, who I think was also debuting, taking on Kip Sabian. Not terribly familiar with this Michael Stevens guy. This guy loves to dance, loves to pump and grind, move around a little bit. Was using it for his best to kind of get the distractions on Kip and Penelope, of course, there at ringside. A nice kind of old school cravat open from Kip Sabian, which certainly caught my eye, which was thrown into my notes here. And then, yeah, a lot of just dancing and mime work and all this kind of weird stuff out of this Michael Stevens character. It was certainly throwing Kip off his game at first, but eventually, yeah, I mean, you can only sort of try that so many times, go to the well before someone's going to catch on. He had a really nice kind of elevated Deadly Hollows for the finish. Kind of is calling out that he was wanting to get some more maybe tough matchups, some respect here on Dark, as well as maybe getting back on Dynamite as well. So big win for Kip Sabian, keeps him in the win column, adding up on his record. And yeah, I think he is getting definitely elevated for maybe a potential bigger feud down the road. Coming up next, we had everyone's favorite from BTE, who the fuck is Griff Garrison, teaming up with one of my new favorites here, Brian Pillman Jr., taking on Private Party. They were definitely kind of teasing the fact that these were two sort of Hollywood blondes with their sort of camera and the old school thing that Brian Pillman and Steve Austin used to do back in the day. They maybe do it a bit too much. A little bit of reference to it I'm fine with, but maybe tone it back a little bit. But man, I know they're kind of just letting Pillman get his feet wet here in AEW, work off some of that that green, get used to things here. But when this guy's ready to be on Dynamite and really into a storyline and that kind of stuff, I really think Brian Pillman Jr. is a star. He's got the look and everything. It's really going to work well, I think, here in AEW, and I can't wait to see what's next for him. But yeah, a lot of this match was the Private Party kind of working their really good tandem tag moves and stuff like that. Eventually, Griff, Garrison, and Pillman were able to kind of work together, get some advantage, kind of lay it into Isaiah a fair bit, but it just wasn't quite enough. These two guys were certainly the enhancement in this match to get the Private Party over. They looked big and strong, hitting a big tandem backdrop together in the ring, and then a splash and then a leg drop for the finish. So yeah, definitely take advantage of the time the two of them can spend in the ring, hitting these moves together, getting the Private Party another big win, seeing what's next for them down the road. Coming up next, we also had the Jurassic Express taking on Corey Hollis with Pineapple Pete and Aaron Solo, who are become some new familiar faces here on Dark, and always fun to see the full Jurassic Express too. We usually only get Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy, so when they can add Marco in, this always seems like the kind of fun match you can do that's not just Marco taking the beating. So we started off with Marco and Aaron kind of going at things kind of hot. Quick tag to Luchasaurus, which didn't kind of last long. He got a bit of offense in before letting Jungle Boy in, who they eventually were able to sort of get the advantage over. Kind of rotating tags from Hollis, Pete, and Solo, trying to get as much advantage as they could here. Wasn't quite enough. And then to sort of, again, throw things on their heads. What you're used to at that time is when you get Luchasaurus getting the hot tag, jumping in on the action, and having his big kick party where he's just hitting everyone with those fantastic leg kicks that he's got. But instead we got Marcos doing his run at it here, taking everybody out with some big fantastic kicks. He loaded, I think it was Pineapple Pete, up on the top rope, and hit a huge razor's edge, which was just, for little Marco, quite a feat of strength there. The three Jurassic Express guys were then able to keep the other two out of the ring while they all hit moves on to Pineapple Pete. He was held up for a 450 splash from Marco Stunt to get the 1-2-3 finish. Rare that Marco's going to get the pin, especially in some of their more higher profile matchups. So in something maybe a little bit more fun, showcasey type thing here, totally okay for Marco to be the one that puts the team over here, and you get a little bit of fun and levity here on AEW Dark. It's not always all serious and that kind of stuff. So jumping back into the matchups, up next we had the Hybrid 2 taking on the Natural Nightmares, who are also kind of returning here to Dark as well, with QT Marshall coming back from his injury. They were definitely able to just sink right back into their kind of old school style, and then that was kind of clashing with the high pace lucha style of Angelico and Jack Evans. Angelico and QT were getting things going early, a total different pace you were getting from when Dustin would get in there against Jack Evans. The storytelling you can get from Jack Evans is just so much fun, and he is just such an exciting guy to watch in the ring. His selling is, to me, hilarious, and maybe it's not for everybody, but I really dig this tag team. I think him and Dustin could maybe have a really fun feud down the road. They worked really well to me in the ring together. I'd like to see more of that for sure. Was something that definitely stood out to me in this matchup. But yeah, for sure, this was definitely reestablishing the Natural Nightmares, who are pretty high ranked, getting a big win over another returning team who sort of need to shake that rust off and polish things up a little bit here. Dustin definitely getting the better of things. It didn't focus too much on the QT alley stuff. I feel like, again, they're building to something there. We're not quite there yet. So we'll wait and see when that eventually happens. So, yeah, Dustin hit his finish. Yeah, big win for the Natural Nightmares here. Quick little side note too, I do like Brandy on the side with her two little Brandy figures. Her sort of subtle heel turn that she's establishing now, where she's definitely letting everyone know she's the only one with figures, is I'm definitely getting a kick out of it. So speaking of the women's division, with Brandy Rhodes coming up next, we had Penelope Ford taking on once again Rachel Ellering. We had her yesterday debuting on the women's tag team tournament, being unsuccessful there. But yeah, another sort of attempt to get in the win column here on Dark for Rachel Ellering, and a nice addition to the women's division. But yeah, Penelope Ford, as we've come to know, is definitely a test for the women's division for anybody in it. So that was certainly the case here for Rachel. She was struggling to get any offense in, especially dealing with the oddball that is Kip Sabian on the outside with his interesting crop top look. He eventually did find a leaf blower underneath the ring as well to cause a bit of distraction, which certainly got a kick out of the commentary team, if not everybody else watching as well. Eventually, Ellering was able to get some kind of hope spots in there, hitting a really good counter suplex, a really powerful spine buster that she hit her with. She's definitely got those basics down really well. I think again, a little bit more work, finding a good partner to work with in there, someone to bounce off of. We could see a lot of fun stuff out of Rachel Ellering. So I think she's, again, like I said, a great addition to the women's great addition to the women's division here in AEW. So but not quite enough for her to get the win here. Penelope Ford was able to sneak it out. She got her big hard handspring elbow, and then that solid bridging back suplex for the finish. Keeping Penelope definitely at the sort of upper echelon of the women's division, but elevating Rachel as well, showing that she can compete as a singles as well as a tag competitor. So our main event was the Butcher and the Blade taking on SCU. This was a cool kind of matchup. I don't think these two had really competed against each other too much in the past before, so I thought that was kind of interesting to see here, especially now that we're getting the sort of old and original sort of setup of SCU with Daniels and Kazarian. The Butcher and the Blade are just finally getting their sort of momentum a little bit more here in AEW. We started with Kaz and Blade going at it pretty hard. They were kind of working an old school kind of lockup, really grinding it out. This was an old school kind of opening for sure, especially tag style, to kind of grind out that sort of look for the advantage on your opponent. And the commentators even mentioned a lot about how we're getting the tag team appreciation night on Dynamite and stuff like that. So I think this was definitely a sort of throwback to an older style, something different that you don't always see, maybe even from these teams, but showing that they can, they're all trained in this kind of old style and that kind of stuff, so they can bust it out when it's necessary. So going from that kind of old school lockups and things like that to more of the heavy hitting from Butcher when he eventually was able to tag in, laying it into Daniels, which eventually led to them getting the advantage. Butcher and the Blade really taking it to the veteran there, but he did sort of eventually get himself away, getting the hot tag for Kazarian. Kazarian really running house on Butcher and the Blade, causing their first kind of malfunction at the junction, as they used to say, as the two of them kind of collided with each other on the ropes. Butcher and the Blade seeming a little bit off here at first, so I wasn't sure if they were going to be able to pull out the win. I thought maybe they needed it a little bit more than SCU, and I guess the bookers thought the same thing too, because eventually they were able to get on the same page. Caught, I believe it was Daniels, with the full death in the center of the ring there, while keeping the other one on the outside. Solid about 12-minute main event match here. Nothing, too spectacular to really reference from this, but again, I think the wins and that kind of stuff is big and pretty important for these guys at this point, especially when they start bringing up their records and things later on, when they have a bigger feuds and things like that. So no, I think a nice solid episode of Dark. I maybe would have wanted another women's match, maybe, since they're trying to establish so many more of them. But hey, great to see another appearance from Rachel Ellering. I think she could be a fun, different addition here in AEW. Anyways, we'll be back for a proper blow-by-blow with Chris and I here on Low Blow Radio next time, so make sure you check that out. And yeah, you can always listen here on YouTube. Like, share, and subscribe as well. And if you want to hear Chris and I on the radio, it's every Wednesday at 7 o'clock, 88.7 The River if you're in Ontario, and 887theriver.ca if you want to listen online. Audio format of these podcasts also available on Sounder as well as Spotify and other platforms. And yeah, I'll talk to you all next time. All right, take care.
Now we're